Hi guys, it's your two poly chicks, Tiffany and
Hi.
Cindy. Hey, and as you may see, we have two special guests with us today. So, in honor of National Human Trafficking and Slavery Awareness Month, we decided to have these two guests who have a combined 50 years. Let me repeat that, 50 years of public service within child welfare, human services, and the social work fields. So, while you might not think that human trafficking has anything to do with these fields, many of the workers that's in that industry are the first responders to finding some of the victims. So we have Tika, who's in the black. I'm sorry, Lois. My good friend. That's going to be used interchangeably. So Lois, she's worked in group homes, child protection agencies, psychiatric centers, psychiatric hospitals, should I say, drug treatment centers. She's also the president of the High Rollers, the Norfolk, Virginia High Rollers Social Club. And recently she completed a year-long internship working with patients who had severe mental illness or severe psychiatric issues. And she has less than 5 months before she receives her master's in social work. So that's Lois. And then we have Janine, who's held positions with child protection agencies, and she's worked in drug treatment with the Department of Probation. She's been an adjunct sorry, she's been an adjunct professor of business. She holds an MBA from Strayer University, and her thesis was on the impact of secondary post-traumatic stress burnout and post-traumatic
Wow.
stress on social workers. So that's an interesting topic, right? She's also an officer of the High Rollers Social Club. So, hi, ladies. Happy New Year. Welcome.
Hi. Happy New
Welcome
Happy
to
New
New
Year,
Year.
guys.
Happy New
Hi.
Year.
Thank you. Thank you.
How are you guys doing today? Everybody's enjoying the new year, the
Yes,
2021?
doing well.
Yes,
yes,
good,
doing
Mm-hmm.
good.
well.
I'm so
Yes.
happy to see 2020 leave. So, all right, new year, new inspiration.
Oh,
Hopefully, no new problems, right?
uh-oh. I don't know, Tiff. A lot of shooting going on up out here in New York.
Oh my goodness! You know what? I'm not even gonna. I'm not.
It
I'm just.
is.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, actually, you're the only one that's left in New York now because I'm
Oh,
in Florida and Janine and Lois are in Virginia now. But we're all
Virginia.
native Brooklyn
But y'all
Brooklynites.
know y'all are Brooklyn
So
born and raised. You can't get rid of
Yeah,
us.
every time
yes.
fireworks go off, I'm reminded.
You could take the chick out of Brooklyn, but you can't take the
Mm-mm.
Brooklyn out of the chick. So
No
Brooklyn
way,
all
no
that's
the
the
way.
way I
way.
feel.
That's
Yes.
right.
That's how I feel.
Hmm.
But we're gonna jump right into the topic because I know a lot of people think that they know what CPS workers do or child protection investigators. They feel like they know what you guys do, but they don't understand the complete scope of the job. So your work is usually looked at as the people that come in and remove children from bad homes. But that's accurate. But what people don't know is that you guys are brave. You go where sometimes police officers don't go. You go in and you put yourselves in precarious situations without weapons. I don't think you guys carry weapons. Without
No,
weapons.
we don't carry weapons.
Okay, see, and
No.
and they face some treacherous
Wow.
situations and encounter criminals, drug addicts, drug dealers, and the topic of today, human traffickers. That's right,
Wow.
human
Wow.
traffickers. So they encounter a lot of stuff. Imagine being in a situation like that without a weapon and just using your wits to be able to get in and out of situations like that. So I'm going to turn it over and just ask you ladies, is there such a thing as a typical day in the life of an investigator? Whoever wants to take
There's
that.
no typical day. When you go in, you know that you don't know what's going to happen when you're leaving out that day. And you don't know what time you're leaving out that day. You can go in at 8 o'clock in the morning and be leaving and going home 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's no typical day. It's always a different day. We like
Wow.
days.
Wow.
You said you
Wow.
like typical days?
We like typical days, but they're
Typical
foreign.
days. Typical days.
Yes. We
Oh
feel
man.
abnormal when it's a typical day.
So that sounds like a lot of overtime though. When you say you're there from 8 in the morning to 2 at night, so that's a perk. But I mean, what like when you say a typical day would be going in and what, just
So going
doing
in,
your
you go in, depending on what happened the day before, you could be still dealing with whatever happened the day before, or trying to catch up on some notes. You may get a case. depending on how heavy the the cases are being called in that day, because we have high peaks and low peaks when cases are being called in. Around the holidays, we know that there are high peaks. When school is starting back up, there's high peaks. So we can go in and we can pretty much get a case every day or almost every day. It just depends on the time and the season of what's going on in communities. So we can go out, we could get if say like we get a report, we'll respond. We have different response times. We go out, we go and we try to make contact with the family, try to assess what's going on and what's been called to see if it's accurate or not accurate, or, you know, sometimes when you go, I have to say my experience is that here in Norfolk, a lot more times to me, it seems like what's been called in is kind of accurate. So you go out and you look and kind of see what's going on, see what's going on with the family. If it's an immediate danger, then we know once we walk in, once we assess that we're going to be removing this child, if it's immediate danger. And what characterizes danger is that it has to be something going on that is detrimental or putting a child in a state where her life, his life is going to be endangered to a point where they can't stay there. But if we go in and we see that, okay, well, there's some things we can do and we could put in place to kind of mitigate whatever was called in those risk factors and things like that, we'll do that. We like to do that opposed to just removing a child. And even if we're removing a child, we're trying to find someone in the community that can, not in the community, but within the family, to take that child in, because we're trying not to take the child outside of what they know, because we know that that's more trauma to a child than anything.
Okay. Well, Janine, I mean, do you like those typical days, or do you like the days where you don't know exactly what to expect when you go in? How do you feel about those days?
I think for me, I think that's an attraction to the job. Because you know how some people say, oh, I go in, I do the same thing every day. I do not do the same thing every day. There is a core set of things that I may have to do every day, but it is not the same thing every day. And although some of the reports may fall in certain categories, the families are not the same and the situations are not the same. And so you can't treat them the same because it's familiar, because people are people. And it's not even fair to do that. Just because, oh, I dealt with this before, they're going to do this, but that family had not done that. So it's not even, you know, that's judgmental, you know. But so you don't know what you're going to get. You go in for one thing and you may come out with 5 other things. And that's the problem. You go in, it may be something that the child had a red mark on their hand, but nonetheless, it was a bruise. Doesn't matter where it is. It's that the child sustained the bruise from a caretaker. That's what will bring us out there. But when we get there, the house may be of a hoarding condition. And that's what the child has been living in. So now we got a different issue. What brought us there was the physical abuse, but now it's turned into inadequate shelter. So now we have to find somewhere for this child to be, which started out so small, but now it's turned into something else. Maybe you got to get the fire department involved. You got to get the health department involved. You got to get the police involved. You know, just so many things that
you
this
just never know. That's the thing. You never know what you're gonna get. You never know. It's like a box of chocolates. And I think Cindy was talking to Lois.
Yeah, y'all guess you could put it like that.
You never know. And I think there's certain limitations too, because Cindy, you were talking to Lois about being a teacher and having certain limitations to what you can and can't do. Because people always say, oh, well, why didn't she just do this? Or why can't you just do that? And
Oh, sorry. You finished?
No, go ahead. No,
No,
go
that
ahead.
segues. Yeah, that segues to what we wanted to talk about. Because as a teacher, like you said, Tiffany, man, it's just like you said. Janine, we used to see things, and we're mandated reporters too. We used to see things. You see a bruise, the child smells like urine. Those were symbols we were taught were sexual abuse or something like that. And we experienced a lot of red tape. When you talked about the hoarding, I got like this feeling of my memory of going to a student's house. The child was right on the border of being an adult. So we was going there trying to get the child out of the school system because the child had major truant issues. So we were trying to get her to take a GED or something because she never showed, and it ruined school's records, school's attendance record. And I remember going in that house when I went in school attendance record. And this child is not going to go to school. So why don't you just age her out or something? But she was like right on the cusp, 17. And when I went into school with that when I went to the child's house with the principal, I wanted to throw up, but you can't show it, right? You can't show it on your face that you're so disgusted. This child was violent. The family was a lot of them. They were in the heart of Brooklyn over there, and like, I don't even want to say where, but the hood, the straight up
Don't say
hood.
where. They might know. They might
say
be like,
it was
they
years
talking
ago.
about me.
This child's probably got to be about 30 now, but it was years ago. But it was so shocking to me. That hoarding thing you brought up, it brought back that memory of, I remember it. And you're trying to talk to the child and she's having a tantrum. I don't want to go to school. And she's fighting and doing all of this. And we're teacher and a principal just going in there trying to talk nice to the child. And so you guys doing this every day, God bless you. I could not do things like that. And I just realized, I was like, it was for an attendance teacher to do, really, which we do have. But what I wanted to know, because I felt limited in my job and what we could report, it had to be always it has to be factual, but it was instincts you have that this is going on, but they want facts, details, dates. They're like, no, you're lying. In your job, do you experience the same political limitations where you know something, but you get held down on what you know?
Go ahead.
I'll let you answer that one. Go ahead.
Well, for one thing, for mandated reporters, because of the incident that happened in Pennsylvania with the coach that molested all of those children in those camps, the federal laws changed because of that. So that's every state. It doesn't even matter. You're going to get fined or you're going to do time in jail if you do not report within 24 hours after finding out what you know. It doesn't matter that you didn't tell your superior. It is what you know. If it came back to you, you are going to be responsible. Yeah. And your superior is going to be like, oh, I didn't know. Mm-hmm. So the reality is that you have to make a report. Mm-hmm. Now, what I find is that schools have their protocols within of how they want it to be reported.
Yep. They supervise it too.
So you know what you know, and then you're supposed to go and tell whoever your immediate supervisor, and then I find that they go and tell the social worker in the school who does not even have the information firsthand. Right. The teacher is really the firsthand person, but that's not the one that's calling in the hotline. So I find that teachers are calling after school hours to call the information in firsthand. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because the truth is that you're not exonerated from any of this. Mm-hmm. And they can call you to the stand either way. Mm-hmm. So you're not exonerated from it.
Mm-hmm. I would like to also say that even if it's just the inkling and you don't have facts, calling in, because let the CPS agency determine what they need to go out on. Mm-hmm. It's not for anyone to determine what we do. You want facts, but then sometimes all you have is an inkling, or all you have is a little bit, and we could still take it and go out and assess, and it was right. So don't let that deter I want a person not to let that deter them from calling in a report. Yes,
that's the ideal.
but let it be determined by the intake division of whatever CPS agency you're calling it in to determine if it's enough or not enough, because it just may be enough. There's key words that are said that will trigger a report. And when we remember, everything that's called in is an allegation.
Right.
Nothing is factual when you go in. Everything is an allegation. So we're going in to gather information to see if the allegations are accurate or not. That's a part of our job.
That's ideal on the social work end, but on the teacher end, it seems like a lot of pressure in the school. They don't like these reports. They don't like incidents. Things go on your record, school record. And a lot of times you're not specifically told you better not call that in, but you do get like, you got to call it in the office. You got to go in the social work office. You got to sit with them. You got to read the script. It got better as I was leaving. I haven't been there in 2.5 years, so maybe they changed things a lot now. But like when we looked at Nix Marie case, we talked about that. What happened with her, that abuse, that just craziness. And even now you see on the news, schools still are known to be hiding things that happen either in school or in home, because parents have more power. And because as a teacher, if you report that, you may, if you got that kind of principle, you're going to be blackballed. And that ain't nothing you could get out of, like to get out of being blackballed.
From telling the truth, or
if you go against,
Wow.
Yeah, they don't like police incidents and stuff. They don't like that kind of stuff.
It is on spotlight. And woe to the school that has a big incident that goes on in it. And woe go public. I had a case like that it was in the school, and it went bigger than I initially thought it was gonna be. And when I found out or spoke to a teacher, she pretty much mimicked the same thing you said. And that's a shame, and that's a loophole, and that's a problem. But I think what people need to understand, you will be held accountable.
Yeah.
You will be held accountable. And it could be the full extent of the law, because of the simple fact that if it even results in death, you know what I'm saying? And this has happened around Nix Mary Brown and all those other cases that turn, a lot of how CPS do their investigations and things like that. You remember that a supervisor and a social worker was arrested as a result of, so I think, sometimes some agencies say, well, it never happened to us, but it doesn't mean that it won't happen to you. And so you need to put the appropriate protocols in place and act accordingly so that it won't be you.
Right. And that's why I say, if you see something, we saw those posters in the train or the subway stations where it says, if you see something, say something. And that's the rule of thumb. If you see something, say something, no matter what, because reporting is the correct thing to do. Now, I did want to ask you guys, because I was very fascinated to hear.
Listen, can I just put a precursor on that? Because I don't want the floodgates to open either. Please don't call on your baby mama because you met your baby daddy because he was somebody's friend.
Okay, so if you see something
downstairs, thank you. That's all I got to say. Like that, please. Those are the reports we don't want.
Lois is like, look, wait.
Yes.
But wait, I did want to say that one of the newer threats within that child welfare system that a lot of people are not aware of, and it's becoming a major problem in the United States, is the human trafficking aspect. So I bet a lot of people don't know that ACS and CPS has come across those sort of things. Knowing the background of what you guys do, it gives you a whole new light on what you guys do. So I'm going to ask and delve into the human trafficking part of it, because that's the thing that I was so fascinated by. How did you come across, or how did you recognize it within your line of work when it's not something that's normal, or it's not something that usually comes across? How did you recognize human trafficking? Did you guys have like training on it? Like how did you recognize it? Whoever wants, I want to hear from both of y'all, because I know you both have experiences.
Yeah.
Whoever wants to go first.
Because of police intervention. That's how I came across. I came across as a result of police intervention. So the police had identified it as an issue when I received the case.
Okay. So they had the case, like, were they arresting the person that was trafficked,
They
or
had
was
to,
it?
oh, okay, they was doing, you want a little bit of details. They was doing
Without giving names and locations.
Right, they was doing they was doing a bus, and as a result of doing a bus, they discovered the young ladies, and then a report was called in.
Young ladies with an S, like it was an actual ring that they were doing a
It
bust
was,
on?
if I could remember correctly, it was two.
Two ring. You're saying they did a bust on the actual human trafficking ring, or they did a bust on?
They was doing a bust in that hotel because the area is well known for it.
Wow. Okay.
And so they was doing a bust, and they discovered two young ladies.
And so why did you get the case? Were they underage, or were they is it part of like CPS, like is it a report that goes to you?
Of course, if they're coming to us, they're underage, but it wasn't directly, it wasn't like we got the report because it's human trafficking, because we don't, according to certain laws, we don't take those type of cases, but it was linked to a concern with the parenting. Let me say it like that. Yeah. And so the report was called in surrounding parenting. However, so that was the vehicle to get it in, but what was the bottom line was the sex trafficking.
Wow.
I'm trying to explain it without giving specific.
Yeah. So Janine, you've had that same, like not the same, but you've had that same kind of thing too, like you recognize it somehow?
Yeah, yes. Just giving just a little bit of background in this area, between probably about 2018, this particular area, Hampton Roads, is a hub for sex trafficking, because Hampton Roads, especially Virginia Beach, that's a tourist area, and it's a big military area. So that alone in itself draws a lot of people. And this is like a second melting pot, if you think of New York City, where a lot of people are coming in and out of here. And so this, like the task force, I want to say, was only kind of put together between like 2017, 2018, where they started putting a task force together. So this is why we're kind of behind, because human trafficking had been taking place, but and we've probably been coming across these cases, but because the laws that surround this was not picking this up, and even Child Protective Services, now we're somewhat asking those questions, but we're not getting those.
Right.
But I did have a case in which I knocked on a door, typical case with a mother with two small infants, 8 months old. I walked in, case was that the mother seemed suicidal, maybe depressed, she might be using drugs again. They wasn't sure. The police was called there to do a welfare check like the day before or something. They didn't find anything with her, but the case was still called into us, so we still got to do our own checks. So this was like a holiday weekend. It was a weekend, so I went, check it out, knocked the door, lady answers the door. Upon coming into the house, it didn't look bad or anything, but she started talking like a child. That's the first thing. Like, why are you talking like a child? And when I say that, I'm asking her questions, and she's like, the man is coming. And I'm like, the man is coming? I didn't know what she meant. What man is coming? The man is coming. The man is coming to pick us up. And it's like, what? So I'm like, where are the babies? Because they were twins. And went in there, looked at them. They were fine. It was hot, so they were fine. But then I was, became really concerned about who is this person. And then she's like, yeah, they're coming to pick us up. They're gonna take us north to teach me how to to sell Tupperware. So sell Tupperware. So I'm like, wait a minute. The first thing in my mind, because I don't even know who's selling Tupperware. No, anymore. If anybody out there is selling Tupperware, nothing against it, but I don't know anybody right now. I grew up with it, not telling my age, but I ain't got nothing against Tupperware. But I don't know who's selling it right now. But to me, I said, oh, that's what they calling it now?
Mm-hmm.
Right there. And she said, because she needed money for her rent. And somebody broke into her house. And really, the first thing I noticed that the door looked like it was broken and patched. And I was going, what kind of door is this? When I was knocking on it, that was one of the first things I noticed, but it was fixed, but it was like just a flimsy door. And she said somebody broke in and her friend hooked her up with this man who's coming to get her. That's going to give her $500, but she only needed $3. But you don't know him. So that right there, in that thinking, I was like, man, this is sex trafficking. And I was trying to get a relative on the phone. After speaking to the relative, and the relative said, I can't help her. I'm not coming to get the kids. My next call was to 911. I knew I couldn't leave those kids there.
Right.
I could ask her a question and she could answer me, but clearly she was not in her right mind. Wow. In her thought pattern, but really it turned out to be sex trafficking because the police finally came. My gosh, I had made 2 calls. Let me tell you. So the man, she said, I gave him my address, but I didn't tell him what apartment. Now it's only 4. But so I'm thinking I get off the phone. Yes, with the man, with the 911. She turns off the lights in the apartment. And I said, what are you doing? And she said, oh, because I don't want him to know that we are here. So I didn't believe her at that point. And then a knock at the door. And he is banging on the door because the man was here to come get all of us at that point. Wow. Okay. So you would have been on the block heart.
You would have been
yes.
Wow.
I would have been part of that because I was on the 2nd floor. It's no fire escapes. It's no way out because I was looking.
You're from Brooklyn. Of course you were looking.
Yes. Before she got in.
Yeah, you from Brooklyn.
I looked out the window. I thought about if I jump out, I could break my legs. That's concrete, but I may hit my head, so I may not make it. I was looking for soft ground. I was thinking because it was raining, and I was thinking how I could get out. I had never in the 20-something years that I have done this job, I saw my life flashing before me.
You're giving me chills.
I'm not going to make it.
Woo.
Yes, and that was the first time in my life. Wow. Yes, I've been in some situations, but I had never been in that. I knew that if I had opened that door, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I would have been here.
Yeah, you're a witness now.
Yeah,
you're a witness.
I wouldn't have been here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
So,
because
the thing is,
so I had to play it off.
Wow.
Yeah, and the girl was going to the door. Man,
tackle.
I had to give her a look. And I'm like, you better not go to the door. And I had to call the police again. The dispatch was so afraid for me that she said, ma'am, I'm so afraid. I'm going to stay on the phone with you. Oh my God. She said, girl, I don't know. Like she know me. But you know what? She's my coworker because she worked for that city. Yeah. And so she is talking to me, because she's like, let me stay with you. I can hear, and I'm afraid for you because she could hear the man banging on the door because he coming to get his money.
Wow.
And that is he's coming to get his money, and he was going to have a surprise person that he could traffic and get more money. Right.
To get the money, right? He has to collect a bonus. Yes.
A bonus Janine. So he would have.
I just want to say I'm laughing because Janine was like, better not say nothing. Janine is like 5'5". So, and I saw the lady, and the lady is like close to my height, about 5'7". So it's cracking to the better not open that door.
She went Brooklyn style. She went Brooklyn style.
Well, yes, when the man knocked on the door, I had to play like I was her.
I was gonna say
Yes.
we're running out of a little bit out of time. We have like a few more minutes left because we're on the Zoom free call. But I know Cindy had
He was
kind of
caught. He was caught. I just wanted to say he was caught and known
okay.
for trafficking and beating women in the area.
Wow.
And he looked like, I
Oh,
call him
wow.
Diablo, because he looked like a devil,
Wow.
literally,
Oh my God.
with the
Wow.
tattoos on his face. He was known for trafficking women up the 95 corridor,
Wow.
going
And
north.
children.
Yes, and
Wow.
children. Yes.
Wow.
Man.
He had
Oh my goodness.
assaulted some people in a hotel with the butt of a gun. Some hotel people and some women the night before, 2 days after that incident.
Wow.
So they had
Oh my
caught him.
goodness.
Wow.
So it
Oh,
was
man.
real. It was real.
Wow.
And see, and that's something that
Yeah.
that you guys experience, and you don't know what you're going into when you get in there. And I mean, I know Cindy, you were
No,
talking
I had
about the
no idea.
disparity with the racial components, the disparity with the victims getting the sentences versus the traffickers. I mean,
Yeah, it seemed like I don't know, all it's nothing like living it. You guys lived it. I've seen a million documentaries on it, as well as, you know, we probably can guess. It seems like the victims tend to be minority women of some kind, Asian, Black, Latino, or Aboriginal, something. And it seems like the buyers are white male, have money, can spend money on this kind of stuff, age 25 to whatever. And that's why, I don't know, my impression was, and it is a couple of videos on YouTube about it, that there's no real law enforcement involvement in it. And like you said, you had to wait a very long time for them to even come. It seems like it's because it's minority, the victims are minorities, and the buyers and the sellers are of other. So I was wondering, did you guys think there was a racial aspect to why this is not, you know, why is this just new information? 2018, why is this something new instead of trafficking has been around for a long time? Do you think it's racial?
I don't know if I can answer that. I can say from my own opinion, there's always going to be a little bit more of something going on when it comes to the Black and brown populations. There's always going to be like a lack of, but I think I don't have enough to say that is primarily Black and brown. Maybe Janine have some information, but I'm gonna say that I think with Black and brown populations, we're always the one more so behind the 8 ball than others.
Yeah.
So, socioeconomics too.
More of a drive.
Yeah, poor.
When it starts happening in socioeconomic. So when you see a major push like the opioid epidemic, and now there's a big push to address opioids, it's hitting their front lawn. Just like I would think sex trafficking is a major push now because it's hitting their front door now.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of videos now and it being in the suburbs now.
Right.
And a lot of the rural
Because they don't look
places.
for us. Right.
They don't.
They wasn't looking for us.
Right.
I mean, you know, nothing but the little girl that went on a senior trip to one of those
Holloway. Natalie Holloway. Natalie
Caribbean countries.
Holloway.
Yes. And how and the white boy that was over there that killed her. Yeah, because he did it. He did it. You know what I mean? But how that went on and on and on. But how many other Black little girls that died over there?
Yeah.
Black
and nothing about it.
Remember the 100 girls missing?
That died almost in the same way. Not by him, but by other means. Yeah. They don't look for us.
There's a whole website called Black and Missing. We wouldn't need that. Black and Missing, the 100 African girls I think they took.
Right. That didn't even make it on the air. That's not even on the air no more.
It doesn't. And you know.
Wait, what's the name of it?
What's the name of it? I think it was called Black and Missing.
Oh, okay.
There was a girl down the street.
It stayed on for a little while, but it didn't.
It don't stay on. There was a girl down the street from my house. I think she was about 17 years old. They found this girl cut up into pieces and put in garbage bags and thrown in a dumpster. She was from the high school right up the street. It was not on the news. It was right in Bedford Stuyvesant. It's not right on the news. Not on the news. Not on the news.
Wow.
And I mean, if
Wow.
this had happened to, like, right now, they're still talking about, what was the little John Benet Ramsey? Who
Yeah.
killed her, the little girl. And this is, I don't know how many years later, not
Right.
that you should ever forget it, but there was her, there was the little girl, Madeline, with the pretty eyes, that little girl, what was her name? Madeline, I think, killed in her
don't know
hotel
that one.
room while the family was on vacation. But you never hear about you never hear that search for Black little girls. You just don't hear it.
No.
Yeah.
Don't hear it.
It's
And
not,
that, like
it's not
Janine,
as prevalent.
yeah, like I said, like
Uh-huh.
Janine had said, like you were saying with it, now that it's coming to the front lawns, it's like, oh, we better
Right.
address this. Because this
Yeah.
has been, I didn't know that this awareness month is like
Nope.
20 years old. And how come we weren't aware
Yeah.
of it?
Nope.
Like it's
And
come on.
and the thing is that in this area, that they got a grant back in 2017, I had read 2017, 2018, to now put these law enforcement, to put this task force together. So can you imagine how many kids went under the radar?
Yeah.
And I've had cases where I've gone into schools where you got little boys pimping little girls out in the middle school. In the middle school.
You know what, Janine?
Okay, and it's like, where did they learn that? Where they get this from?
What I want to do, since we got 2 minutes, we can do it part 2, but you are definitely in our next question of schools, because schools are definitely, you hear my alarm going on. So what we
are
gonna
you guys good for another 20-minute
part
session?
2, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we
Janine,
can.
are you on board? I know
okay.
she was eating her bread, so.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So what we can do, we're gonna go right into
Yeah.
part 2. We can go into the school, because you guys are going right into our questions. So we got the one on schools. We want to go right into it, part 2. So I'm gonna, you guys stay with us for part 2. This is just so riveting. We're getting so much. I mean, gosh, this is so. It's very overwhelming to hear these things, especially when you're talking about women. And you know that's really who the victims are. I know there's male victims, but there's a lot of, mainly women being little girls being trafficked. So we're gonna go into part 2, and we will pick this up. You guys ready? Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right. Good for her. Good for her. We're recording now too. We saw her. Okay, guys, we're back. This is part 2. And where we left off, Janine was telling us about boys in school, trafficking. And that's something I did see in some of the documentaries, was some of the girls, especially in the rural areas, was saying that they first got their first experiences with boys. And then the boys had like uncles and people in the neighborhood, and they started trafficking them within the small community. So Janine, you could just pick up where you left off, where you were talking about.
Yeah, I was talking about in a middle school level, that the one boy, I want to say he was about 11, and he were convinced so they were like 11, 12, somewhere around there, to have sex with multiple men, different men, and he was there to collect the money. Yeah. But they were meeting these guys behind buildings, behind bushes, because they don't have money. They can't get to a hotel or any of this. And some of these people were grown. They were grown. And I do remember having a case where this little girl, now you have 11 or 12-year-old coming home at night, and see, they're more afraid of what's going on in the street than they are of the parent. That's, to me, these are all these red flags. Yeah. Because they know that the mom is going to get mad and beat them, but they can come home and they're going to be on punishment. But they are more afraid, and they'll keep doing it because they're more afraid of whatever is out there. Yep. Yeah. If the pattern keeps on, but they come back, they got mosquito bites all over their legs. Yeah. Hair's a mess. They don't look the same, the way they came in, the way they left. You got to ask yourself what's going on here. Is this really just one boy? What's really happening? And these kids are under such duress because of fear. I tell you that because of, what's going on.
A lot of, when I know I asked, I had asked one of the agents from Homeland Security who worked in sex trafficking to come talk to the social workers. And I remember one of the things they said is that the kids could be coming back and forth home. It doesn't mean that they're totally abducted and they're taken from your
Yes,
home. But the
that's right.
parents are not picking up on your child coming in with stuff that they really shouldn't be having, or like expensive
Yes.
stuff, or
Yes.
they're not picking up on the clues, and not to shame a parent, because I think society right now is where parents have to work and they're trying to maintain a household, and the worries of the household is a lot. And if you want to bring it back to Black and brown and socioeconomics, socioeconomics, if I'm struggling to put a roof over our heads and I don't make enough, and I'm trying to make sure I buy food, and I need to make sure that I try to put clothes, my attention, and I might be working 2 jobs just to do that. My attention is not necessarily so much, not because I don't want it to be on my child, but the fact of the matter that I'm split between meeting my child's basic needs as well as my own, and trying to make sure that my child is safe. And that's where the school come in.
Yeah.
That's where the other aspect, the other community services come in to be that support to the parent, to be that extra eye, because right now our country is in an economic downfall and crisis, and how much more attention a parent is not going to have on their child once they're able to go back to work, how much more attention a parent is not going to be able to have on their child. So one of the things that the agent was talking about that stuck with me is that, they're coming home. Sometimes people think, oh, sex trafficking, they're abducted, they're taken to another country, or they're taken from another country and they brought here, and it's happening right in our backyards. It's happening in our homes.
They go to school.
And we don't, they go to school every day, they come home. And
see, that's something I wouldn't have noticed. I would not have known that. Just the fact that they come home. They come home. I would think that if you coming home every day, then the parent would notice, or someone would notice something different about that kid. And that's an aspect I'm sure a lot of people don't know, that these kids are coming home. When I think of human trafficking, I'm thinking they're gone. They're missing. But they're coming home, and
they're coming home.
No. As a teacher, one of the things oh, sorry, you was gonna say?
I was saying that back to what you were saying and what Janine was saying about the young, the kids being young and they're being their first exposure to sex trafficking.
Boys.
The young lady that was on my caseload, her first interaction was a peer.
In the school system, I saw there was several girls. I remember there was one girl, she was held back a couple of times in school. So where she normally, I taught 8th grade, she normally was supposed to be in 10th grade. So she was already 2 years older, and she was so developed and so out there, and her friend, the two of them, they were old, and they were so developed, and you could tell that they were very highly sexually active. You could tell. She was seen at different, the area McDonald's, the area, the bagel stops, the pizza store, and you see them getting in and out of cars. I've seen kids, their parent drop them off at the school, and they watch their parent drive off, and they go in another direction. Now, teachers, we're coming in the morning, we got our bags, we're trying to get in our classes. We see the kid, and we're like, oh, they're probably going to go hang out at Arby's or McDonald's or whatever the store, the area stores are. And we don't confirm that they're in class that day. So you could skip school, and the school rule is like, you got to be absent like 10 straight days before we really come out and send for you. Or 3, they got different rules for how many days of this and that. It's just very, very, very limiting. And there is a loop. Well, you've seen it like in the R. Kelly documentaries and these other documentaries, these men, they hang out at the school. I also had a lot of kids that were in foster care, that were in shelters. I had one community, I worked in at one point I worked in a heavily Asian community, and those kids' parents had restaurants. Your parent is not coming home until 1 o'clock in the morning. Some of them, I used to be like, did you see your mother last night? Oh no, she had to work. I had to pick my little brother up, take him home, cook this and do that, and I didn't get a chance to do my homework. And I'm like, you didn't see your parent. They go, by the time the kid is in the bed, the parent didn't even, by the time the parent got home, the kid is already maybe home at 12. I could have came home at 1 o'clock. If I know you come home at 2, I could come home at 1. A lot of them are in cleaning services. A lot of them are in medical field. These are jobs where they off hours. So that's the loops. And so I wanted to know from y'all, what could the schools do to educate, expand? Because teachers know and they have a sense, but I don't feel like there's formal training to really spot this potential gap in you being trafficked by another student, or you being trafficked by a man that hangs out around the school all the time. What do you guys think could be done with that? If any,
I think you answered the question. I think it's education. I think it's education. I think it's like a task force, like Janine said. When she mentioned a task force, it wasn't a task force among different agencies coming together to address it. When she spoke about a task force, she was talking about the law, the police, their task. But it's so many different ways that, so many different agencies, I should say, that come in contact with a child that'll be sex trafficking. So it needs to be education, and then it needs to be a task force to develop where there's a point of contact. You know who to call when you have this situation going on, or where you think this is the situation. Hospitals, schools, police, CPS. It should be a united front. I know that on trauma cases, it's a little different in different areas. I know in New York, there is a united, and yes, in Virginia too, to a degree. I think it varies, but when we get sex abuse cases or severe physical abuse cases, there is a instant response, and they called it an instant response in New York, where the police, the CPS worker, the forensic social worker, the forensic doctor, we all meet up in one place and we come together and we assess the situation. We pull the parents in, we pull the child in, and then we assess the situation and make a determining factor. And so I think that's the same thing that should take place, or it should be another aspect of an instant response, because sex trafficking is trauma. And so it should be addressed and looked at as this child has have experienced some type of trauma. And so I don't know, things have changed. I don't know if New York has put something, that aspect in it. I know Virginia is now discussing policies surrounding how to acclimate these type of reports and stuff like that. But I think a task force needs to be developed, or it should be included.
The school's got to do something, because I feel like they're first responders in a lot of ways. They get to see the kid every day, and they get to see when the kid is absent. Absenteeism is a big red flag.
Listen, when you're hired, one of the questions they ask is, if you want to go see a kid to get information, where's the first place to go? You go to the school.
Wow. Well,
attendance first.
But see that I was going to ask that question too. We were talking about the once they're found and they're located. I think we had discussed this before. What happens? What takes place after that? What happens? What's the I guess the remedy to acclimate them back to society? Or is there are there groups
right
that
now they don't? I know I sat in on a conversation with different people in from CPS, from the attorney's office, from the child abuse, from the hospitals. We all had a conversation like that, and a lot of people think that putting the child in foster care should be the next logical step. However, you have to understand that that is not the next logical step, because one, this child has been exposed to elements that can place that foster home and the other children at risk in that. Again, also, you have these children that have been using all types of drugs. They have been exposed to all types of diseases. And so I have not heard of, and I don't know if Janine has heard of, where they have a place where they can not, because what I've had experience is that a child has been put in jail. to prevent them from running, because they will run back. Because if you think about it, they have a form of Stockholm syndrome where they're identifying with the person who's physically abusing or sexually abusing them or exploiting them. So they have some connection. And so, yes, they see them as their caretaker.
Wow.
And they're going to run back. And that's another thing, putting them in foster care. Foster care is not a lockdown facility. So even if you put them in there, they can have the sex trafficker come pick them up. There's a risk of them turning out some other kids in the home, and those kids are going with that child. So it's too many variables when you're dealing with a child that has been on the street.
So are you saying that it's easier to put them in prison to protect them?
No, I'm saying it's not, because then you have the other aspect where these kids have been on drugs and they're withdrawing in the jail cell. And
so
then
what type of group, like where's the help? What type of advocacy
it has to be developed? And I don't know of a place
develop. You
somewhere
said
they could be a facility to be debriefed. You know, think about prisoners of war. You can just take them from where they have been all this time and then put them back with their families without debriefing them, without any of that. And you take a child who's been snatched up at 13, but have been with a pimp, and now she's 16, now she's 18, and then they've been picked up by the law probably all along for soliciting, for prostitution, but really all the time they've been a victim. But they've not been recognized as that all this time.
They don't have nowhere to put them though, because
the young ladies, now they're grown women telling their stories, but they're like, I was a child. Nobody saw it. Nobody.
They put her in jail to prevent her. That was their way of preventing her from running back to. They put her in juvenile detention. So when I say it, I don't know, and like I said, I don't know if they have something now here. But I remember that I know that the conversation was, why can't we just put them in foster care? No, sir, we can't put that young lady in foster care. There's too many elements and risks with her to put her in a regular foster care home or a third foster care home. Because one, they're not locked down. So I don't know. There was nowhere to put her, and they put her in detention. So I don't know if they developed anything, but I know that at that point in time, they did not know where to put this young lady. So that tells me they don't have anywhere to put this young lady.
And that's what I was going to say. So there needs to be more support, more advocacy groups. And there was some that I was looking at. I mean, there's certain acts, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. If you go to the Department of Homeland Security or Department of Health, there's like different organizations that you can join and, volunteer with, or just get educated on when it comes to this type of human trafficking, sex trafficking aspect. It's the Hope for Justice, the Operation Underground. You could just Google those organizations, and it has to be some type of advocacy that takes place. And the more people know about it, the more they can become involved with it, because that's something, if we don't know where to put these people, how do we get them the help they need? Like
they have, I know that when I saw some of the videos, they had those voluntary people that were trafficked became advocates, and they have, a lot of them have homes. We have a few homes in the area, but they're for the pedophiles, they're for the sex offenders. You have a lot of those. So those same kind of homes I've seen them have, but they're not, I never even realized how lacking that is. They really don't have anywhere to put these young, I don't want to just say girls, because I know men, young men can be trafficked also, but for the most, it's probably a lot of women, or young girls. So they don't have any, I just didn't even realize they don't have anywhere to put them when they come out. And they also expect them to go to school and hang with kids that have absolutely no idea what they've been through.
They live a whole nother lifestyle. Their lifestyle is totally different from what you're trying to do. And so when you put them in these homes, it has to be intensive treatment. It has to have a component of substance abuse treatment, because again, these kids, they're using drugs. They're using all kinds of drugs.
So they have to be debriefed. They have to be deprogrammed.
Right.
Wait, I was gonna say, you see that D again, the D, but that's a whole other. That's what things be quick. But they
Yeah,
have to be deprogrammed, detox,
everything.
it just they have to have a whole entire makeover. I know
Right.
we're
Yeah.
running out of time now, but I know we had questions about your burnout and your self-care. So Cindy, are you going to take the burnout
Well, yeah,
question doing this
what I
job?
wanted, yeah. I remember when I was a rape crisis counselor. My burnout day was when they called me about a, and I was trained on it, and we were told we could get a case of a little girl that was possibly raped. But when they called me about that, I kind of was like, I don't think this is for me anymore. I was wondering, do you have that feeling of burnout, or this might be the end of the road for you? Sometimes you feel like, the struggle is real.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get my days. I get my day. It's not so much the children that I service.
Mhm.
I think it's more with coworkers
The adults.
and management
The system itself.
who are detached. They are too detached. So they may be involved with the day to day somewhat, and then they are detached from what I really do on a day to day.
Okay.
So they know behind the scenes what needs to take place, but they don't know how it's taking place. How we really getting this done?
Right.
And so you're
Wow.
throwing
So
out
it's more
stuff from
so,
a desk,
Yeah.
but what happened is you forgot how this is really getting done, because I can come back and tell you there's been a shift, but you can't really relate to me in me saying that because you're not doing it.
In the
And
trench.
not
it's
in the
like,
field.
oh, okay,
Yeah. In the
Yeah.
trench.
yes, you're
But I
not
think to
there.
go back out.
And
Mhm.
yes, in these type of jobs like this, I think it is very, very important. I don't care if it's just one case a year, that from the top to the bottom, that they have to take one case or even two per year in order to stay current, because you cannot understand,
Yep. I agree.
going into
I
somebody's
agree.
house,
Wow.
I agree. And like I said,
and so now you can't understand me as a worker. And so it comes across like I schedule my vacation, I take care of myself while you're not taking care of you. You know, so it comes off like that, like what?
Yeah.
But we're not even running the same race.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Janine. I'm so sorry, because I know we're up against the time. I don't know how much time we have left, but
I think maybe 3 minutes.
okay. So what I want to say is, you guys are awesome for doing the job that you do. I mean, going out every day. I mean, I always tell you, Lois, I always say the type of job, I would never be able to do the job that you do. Janine, you guys are awesome. You have to have a heart and just so many aspects of what you do. And one of the key things is always self-care. Even doing a job, especially doing a job that you do, one of the key things and aspects is self-care. And I mean, that's what we want to end on a positive note of, you guys, this year, if you haven't been doing it, that we take some element of self-care, and even though this is a job that we're doing, that it attacks our emotions, that we always take into account self-care. And the people, I mean, that are watching, if you guys want to know more, if you want to get more information, just like I said, you can Google it. You always know that you even though Lois said don't call it on your baby mama, but you can always call it your physician.
Don't call no baby mama dropping stuff in.
But,
We don't do that.
But we're
or
so
your
happy
baby mama's girlfriend, right?
Yes.
Oh God. But we're so thankful that you guys came on here to just bring awareness and just give another view of what the CPS workers do, and just I'm sorry, just it gave us a little more time. So
they said 10 minutes, right?
Just
you said 10 minutes?
things that you just the amount of work that you do. And so since we have the 10 minutes, I'll ask, what do you guys do for self-care to detox yourselves from all the craziness that you see and hear out there, to have your life be more zen? I'll send it to Janine first.
Me personally, I really say that all that I take in, going to church, I have to have that personal spiritual relationship to empty some of that out. And that's not somebody that's going to say, no, that's too much. I can't take it. God is not going to tell me that. I can just take all of it out, empty it all out, and then start again. To me, it's the only way. Because even your loved ones, they care about you, but they don't want to hear this. They don't want to hear this story.
It's very heavy.
And it's not even fair.
Yes, I like to hear your stories, though. I like to hear.
But we're weird, Tiffany. We're weird. We're unicorns. We're unicorns.
Okay.
So what?
Yeah.
Did you get to answer?
And just doing things that you like and having good friends. It's important to have good friends and you talk, that you're able to talk, and that somebody that you're just interacting. And it's not, you're not always talking about work. You may be able to talk about work, but you go into something else and you talking about whatever you want. Because I find that I've seen a few social workers really, they come back, but you could see the change. You start not having an interest in the things that you used to. You don't want to do the things. You don't even know what's happening to you. You're like, what's wrong with me? But right now with this pandemic, it's hard to tell the difference right now because it's an added stress. It's an added stress where you're like, man, I go out for one day, I'm working from home, but I find myself, I'm in the office just as much now. We've never stopped working in this pandemic because we couldn't, because children are more isolated at home. The incidences of domestic violence and child abuse was horrific.
Wow.
And the cases have not stopped. And you thought maybe they would even out. It was more horrific. Wow. So I've gotten a case last week that on 2 weeks ago that it's like, oh my God.
Breaking up.
So it has not evened out. If not, maybe even got a little worse, Wow.
Yeah.
So what about?
So when
I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me? I feel like I'm breaking up. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Y'all can hear me? Okay. I'm sorry. So as far as self-care, what about you, Lois? What do you foresee for yourself? I'll say, wait, let me just say, having a relationship with God, even if you don't go to church, that is essential. And to me, that's what I'll just say that, Janine, that is essential. But go ahead, Lois. I'm sorry.
I find that I haven't been the best self-care person. I have not been the best. That's my honest and authentic answer. Things that I have done to kind of implement it is, again, I have a routine where I listen to positive things. I don't turn on the news as much. Well, I really don't watch TV at all, really, anymore, which is amazing. But I listen to a lot of things that build up my mind, a lot of positive things, like listening to Les Brown and listening to Brave
and politics.
And politics, yes. and speaking to my good girlfriends and, my
shameless.
Gotta get it in. And even being a little transparent, sometimes you have to go to therapy. You have to talk some things out because, with the type of work we do, we experience secondary trauma. And that can really take us down. And so sometimes you have to go talk to somebody and say, I got this on my head. This is what's going on. I can't shake it. What I need to do, because they'll start seeping in. So sometimes you may have to go and speak to somebody and kind of work that stuff out, like the professional going to a professional. That's, thinking about that. But and just having good friends around you, and that you can be your authentic self, and you can disclose how you're feeling, and they, and of course prayer is very important. God is very important. But I think God allots those things when you need it. He points you in the direction of where to go to get it.
Yeah.
So, but I haven't been the best self-care person.
But it's
No,
wait, I was
yeah.
gonna say it's 2021, it's a new year, so we have new habits that we
Yes,
can build as
yes.
well. So
Yeah.
Well,
Then,
Oh,
do you
yes.
have anything
Oh,
else?
yeah.
Just, we can close it out with that. I just want to thank you guys for coming on. I do want to say, you guys, a lot of the things you said reminded me of when I was teaching, because as a teacher, you saw 200 kids in a day that you personally were responsible
Yeah.
for. And you could see those things, and burnout is real. Burnout is real. And some of our most
Yes.
successful professional developments were always around yoga,
Mm.
always the soapbox of having a room you can go in and just complain. What you said, Janine, really touched me about when you said your supervisors, you feel like they sometimes maybe were detached. Teachers say the same thing about principals and administrators, that we wish they would just have one class they have to teach a class every now. Did you know, like 30 kids coming in your room, all of them looking at you as mommy, and teachers neglect themselves in the same way, and their bosses are the teachers, other
Yeah, they do.
parents, principals, politics all around it. And so it is very, very important that you look out for yourself, take care of yourself. Lois, take care of yourself. What I wanted to add, and then we can close it out with this, is I found there's a human trafficking hotline. If you feel like, you have questions, or this is for our audience also, if you feel like somebody might have been trafficked, the number is, I don't want to say it wrong, right? 888-373-7888. So that's 888-373-7888. And it's the National Human Trafficking Hotline. I believe they have a whole bunch of languages. So we also have a playlist that we have with a whole bunch of videos on human trafficking and about, so you can look in there to check out anything you're interested in. This topic, man, we could have 50 episodes of it. There's so many aspects you guys touched on, but I really think it's very important for us to start with empowering the people that come in contact with these children. So that's the doctors, that's the teachers, that's the, anybody, social workers, case workers. We really have to, I don't know, the thing that I took away from this is the fact that they don't have any place to go after they get out of trafficking, to acclimate them back into the system and make sure they don't go back to their caregiver, that person that's been abusing them. So that's all I'm going to say. Tiff?
Well, I'm gonna close it out. Like I said, thank you guys. You've been awesome. We've learned a lot from you, and just getting a different aspect of what a CPS worker may experience. I'm sure a lot of people are like, "What? They do that, or had that happen?" So I thank you guys for coming on and sharing the experience. You guys can always follow us at Two Poly Chicks on Facebook. We're on YouTube under Poly Chicks. We have Twitter, Instagram. And I keep saying the TikTok is coming. Twitter, Instagram.
Yeah. We're going live on Thursday.
and we're going, well, no, not this Thursday, because this tape won't come out until, this Thursday. But
right.
You'll see. We'll be live a few times. But thank you guys for coming, and we enjoyed it.
For having us.
Thank you.
No problem. Love you, ladies. Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.